we're coming off of what I believe were two really good Monday night games, and I'm still salty that they do these Monday night doubleheaders. I'm gonna have some thoughts on that at the end of this video, just to warn you guys. Like, it is going to be what I got right and what I got wrong, obviously tonight. But I can't help but to voice my displeasure for this Monday night doubleheader because both of those games were good enough to be standalone games by themselves. Particularly the Washington and the Bears game. That game was a really fun one and came down to the wire, and that one should have been on its own tonight because I can't do the simulcast stuff, but we'll get into all that stuff. Everybody understands what we're here for. We're here obviously to discuss what I got right and wrong in Week 6 fantasy football, and I do this every single week to provide transparency. And there's weeks where it's really really tough. Not tough to come on here and do this, but obviously tough in the sense that I have worse weeks than others. I got a lot right this week, but definitely had some big ones, and obviously I think a lot of you are going to be wanting one in particular. So there is going to be one in particular that we'll talk about. But make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you appreciate this weekly segment that I do, because nobody else gets transparent like me, because nobody can withstand the storm that comes with doing this what I got right and wrong segment like I can. So we'll start out with the first thing that I got right, which is that listen, I think that a couple of weeks ago, I said something about one particular player, and I remember being on the live stream when I said it. It was after one of the Thursday night games a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually off one of his worst performances in fantasy over the season so far. But I stood my ground and I said, this guy is a freaking superstar. And I'm not sure people were receptive to it. I think the response at the time, if I'm remembering correctly in the chat, was that, nah, he's not in that Justin Jefferson category. He's not in that Jamar Chase category. But I said, listen, Jackson Smith-Njigba is a superstar wide receiver. And he has been exactly that in fantasy football. Now, we can have discussions again, like whether or not he's Justin Jefferson level or CeeDee Lamb level or, Jamar Chase level. But, there's no way that you can't convince me he's not in at least tier 2 at this point as far as NFL talents at the wide receiver position. I mean, even if you take away the NFL talent, right, and you just say, oh, he's just really good at fantasy football, well, the guy's been amazing in fantasy football so far. I mean, this guy right here through the first, what is it now? We are 6 weeks through the 2025 season, and Jackson Smith-Njigba is the wide receiver 2 in a half PPR format. I mean, he's averaging 18 fantasy points per game in a half PPR format, and in a full PPR format, he's averaging 21 and a half fantasy points. So Jackson Smith-Njigba is 100,000% an elite superstar wide receiver in fantasy football. And again, I think, what was interesting was that the pushback that I got a couple weeks ago when I said that about him, and people were like, he's not really that level. He's really good, but, he's not that. I think it's becoming more and more clear every week, because I think the separating factor that JSN has found this year is the fact that he's getting so much work down the field these days. The first 2 years of Jackson Smith-Njigba with Tyler Lockett there and DK Metcalf there, a lot of it was spent towards the line of scrimmage, right? Like, his yards per reception would typically hover right around 9 to 11 yards or something like that. Well, this year, he's being used tons down the field, and it's proving something that it's not that he couldn't do it. They just didn't use him like that with Geno Smith and with the old offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb and Shane Waldron a couple years ago. But now that they have Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold, he's averaging 16.6 fantasy or yards per reception. He has been absolutely fantastic, man. So I've been on this one for a while now. I mean, Jackson Smith-Njigba, when he came out of college, I said I think he's the best wide receiver prospect we've seen since Jamar Chase. I love Jackson Smith-Njigba. And it was met with people who were like, what are you watching? And I said, the guy's route running. That's what I'm watching. And he's been proving me right all year. And he proved me right last year, let alone this year, where he's just really going over the top. I didn't expect this level, but once I saw it, I said, yeah, it doesn't surprise me knowing the fact that this guy is a true superstar at the wide receiver position. So I definitely got that right for sure. Something I got wrong this week. So there were several things that I had wrong in my rankings this week for sure. The crazy part about this one is that I've been taking a dump on this particular game all season. I hate the overseas games. Now, I have much more disdain. And again, I'm going to get into this later because I can't hold it. I have much more disdain for the Monday night doubleheaders than I do for the overseas games. But I have a lot of disdain for the overseas games as well. And I've been proven very right since the start of the season about the overseas games being garbage because both of those teams that travel there, they're going to a completely different time zone. They just got there like several days earlier. They're not adjusted to the time change. They're not adjusted to the field conditions. Like, it's just an overall bad position to put your teams into if you're the NFL. Now, I will give the NFL the benefit of the doubt. And it's not even the benefit of the doubt. From a business perspective, it makes sense what they're doing because I think that the thing that you have to make sure you understand is that when this NFL TV deal ends, they're going to make a Sunday morning package for that overseas game. They're going to sell it to the highest bidder. And as a business, like, I understand you have to run your business that way. So I understand why they're doing it, but it makes me mad that I got this one wrong because Courtland Sutton was in this overseas game against the Jets. And if you did not watch that game, you didn't miss much. Like, I have to watch that game because it's part of my job. So, like, I watched that game begrudgingly because it was gross. It was disgusting. Like, that was a horrifically sickening game because neither offense was functioning well at all. And the thing is that, I love the fact that Bo Nix and the Broncos pulled it out as ugly as they did because it showed some resolve for the Broncos as a team. But at the same time, man, like, I watched this game and I thought to myself, I've been seeing the same thing with the Denver offense, which is that something doesn't look right, and it got highlighted overseas. So I called Courtland Sutton a top 10 play this week versus the Jets, and particularly called out Sauce Gardner quite a bit this past week, saying that he was definitely overrated and he was not a corner I fear. And I still stick by that. Like, I think this was more of a product of Bo Nix in the second half than anything else. Like, Bo Nix didn't complete, I think it was 3 passes. He completed 3 passes in the second half. It was bad, man. And it bothers me so much that I got this one wrong with Sutton because, again, when I rank someone in the top 10, I fully am aware of what I'm doing. Like, I'm telling people that's a must-start player this week. And I told a lot of people to start Sutton, and that was a terrible move and probably one that crushed a lot of people this week when they had other options like Rico Dowdle and Kamani Vidal. Like that was never going to happen. Like, the Rico Dowdle one makes sense. Like, I may have told someone to play Rico Dowdle over Courtland Sutton, but I would have never told anyone to play Kamani Vidal over Courtland Sutton because I was so guaranteed locked in on this matchup, and it turned out to be an utter disaster. And again, it makes me mad because I should have seen it coming because every team, every offense what overseas game have we seen this year that has been like, oh, this is a banger. Like, both offenses are firing on both cylinders. Like, the defenses are making plays. What game have you watched that's been like that overseas? None of them, because they all suck. They all suck. Those overseas games suck because all of those teams come out completely just out of sorts. And I don't blame them. So I should have seen this one coming, but I got it wrong. Now, here's something I got right on a better note. I do buy low videos every single week on trade targets. And, I switched it, at this point in the year, it's not really buy lows anymore. Like, buy low is more of a thing within the first month, maybe month and a week. Like, within the first 5 to 6 weeks, I think you could buy someone low if for example, like Brian Thomas Jr., right? Like Brian Thomas Jr. for weeks now has been a buy low, and I've mentioned him once on the channel. I should have mentioned him every week because, like, now you can't buy him low, right? The buy low window on Brian Thomas Jr. is officially closed. So there was one guy in particular, Ladd McConkey, that I named a buy low last week. And it was before it was actually before week 5 that I called Ladd McConkey a buy low candidate, because there was something that I kept seeing, and this is the value of our site. And this is completely free, by the way. If you go to the Los Angeles Chargers page and you go to any given week, any one of their weeks that they played, let's go back to week 1, for example. Look at the wide receiver production. And when you actually go to snap counts, go sort by routes run, and you'll see that Ladd McConkey has been leading this team in routes run every single week. With Quentin Johnston, with Keenan Allen, he's been the wide receiver 1 in routes run and snap counts every single week. I mean, it doesn't matter which week you pick. Ladd McConkey is at the top or in second place behind Quentin Johnston. And for that reason, I kept saying to people, listen, Ladd McConkey's going to break out because he's doing what he needs to do, which is get the bottom line metrics are there. The bottom line metrics to me for wide receivers are snap counts and routes run. That shows how much you're on the field, and it shows how many routes you're running on a per game basis, which will indicate how important you are to their pass game on a weekly basis. And Ladd McConkey just kept being at the top every single week. And the targets were coming his way. He just wasn't maximizing on those targets. So I kept telling people, Ladd McConkey's going to break out. So the week that I told people he was a buy low, Ladd McConkey came out and he did really well. And he got in the end zone. It wasn't that great of a game fantasy-wise, but he did get in the end zone that week. So week 5, let's see what his production was. Ladd McConkey, 14.9 fantasy points in a full PPR format, 6 targets, 5 catches, and a touchdown, right? So the buy low window had shrunk, but it wasn't completely closed. And I told people before the week started, before this past week started, that is, I actually sold Marvin Harrison Jr. in one of my personal redraft leagues for Ladd McConkey. And I guarantee you the guy who got Marvin thought he was getting a win. Well, this week he comes out. The week 6 numbers aren't up yet on FSRoundup.com, just for your information. But Ladd McConkey had his best game of the year. And Quentin Johnston was out, but it doesn't matter. Because the bottom line and what I'm trying to show people when I show you guys the bottom line metrics on FS Roundup, it's completely free to see this. The value in knowing those numbers for all of these teams is so important. That's a reason why I kept saying Kayshon Boutte was a guy that I liked in New England. And lo and behold, he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy this week. So Ladd McConkey was just one of those guys that I kept telling people, we're on the brink of it. Like, we're on the brink of this guy becoming a breakout. And you want to get in on the opportunity because he is burning people so bad right now that people are just sick of having him on their team. And now it's too late. If you haven't done it yet, it's too late. That buy low window is gone. But if you did do it and you listened to my advice and you did what I did as well, then I'm very happy that you did because it makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I think that this is one of those scenarios where Ladd McConkey moving forward is going to be back in my lineup in a lot of situations. I have a lot of confidence in him. Alias, appreciate the super chat. Always good to see you. I will address your super chat once I go through what I got right and wrong. Now let's get into the next thing, what I got wrong, which is that this is another one of those calls this week where it just makes me sick because I knew it was going to, I knew the possibility of it happening was so high. And I chose to ignore my better instinct on this one and to rank him inside of, I don't know if he was top 10. I think I had him in the top 12 running backs this week. So, I think that a lot of times I take a lot of matchups into consideration when it comes to players and rankings, right? So any particular matchup, particularly with wide receivers, right? I always voice my concerns when a wide receiver 1 is going up against Pat Surtain, right? The cornerback in Denver. Or, I voice my concerns against certain run defenses, right? Well, there was one run defense that I didn't think was very good, which is the Pittsburgh Steelers. But there was another element to the game where when I ranked Quinshon Judkins high, I went against my better judgment. And what that was is that, if you've watched Dylan Gabriel, like I had the real opportunity to sit and watch every play of this guy live. This past weekend when I watched the Steelers, and Dylan Gabriel, I think he threw like almost 60 passes in that game because they were trailing all game. And in the game, and when they were in the game and they were passing the ball, Dylan Gabriel was just incompetent. Like he should have thrown like 5 picks against the Steelers. The Steelers dropped like 5 interceptions. I mean, the Steelers should have had a freaking enormous day as a defense in fantasy, but they just kept dropping all the interceptions. The one concern I had that I overlooked with Judkins heading into the week was that Judkins, I kept saying to myself, what are the chances that the Steelers just know for a fact they've got to shut Judkins down and they want to make this guy throw the ball? And I was like, it's really high, but at the same time, I'm going to rank him where I'm going to rank him because I believe in the talent that Judkins is because he's performed against a couple of good defenses in a row, better than the Steelers' run defense. So I ignored my judgment and I put Quinshon Judkins inside of the top 12. So it comes out, and I watched that full game live on Sunday, and Dylan Gabriel couldn't do anything. And I see someone's comment, Gabriel can't see past the line. That's very possible. Like, this guy is a shrimp. A shrimp. Like, he is so small. And watching him against, like, real NFL players is jarring. Because you watch this guy, and he is just, he can't do anything. He's overthrowing guys. He's throwing hospital balls. Like, he's putting the ball in harm's way. Everything happened as I thought it could happen, which is that this team, the Steelers, all they're going to do is they're going to stack the box and make this guy beat them. And that's exactly what they did. And Gabriel can't do that. So moving forward, I got to tell you, like, I got this week wrong with Judkins. I got to tell you, man, like, moving forward, I'm going to have Judkins probably down in my rankings unless they're playing a ridiculously good matchup. Because this guy, Dylan Gabriel, as long as he's their quarterback, any defense that has a brain at defensive coordinator is going to say to themselves, man, all we got to do is stop Judkins and make Dylan Gabriel throw. So Judkins is going to face a lot, and I mean a lot, of stacked boxes throughout the rest of the year. So yeah, that was a bad one. And again, it bothers me so much because the two that I got really wrong this week was Sutton and Judkins. I saw it coming, but I just ignored my better judgment. And Judkins is the prime example of why you should always go with your gut. I tell people this a lot. Go with your gut. If you disagree with something I say so strongly, and you just have a feeling on a certain player, Jamar Chase is a great example. Like, obviously the guy is elite. Like, I was never questioning the talent, but clearly I underranked him this particular week, and a lot of people disagree with me on it. What I've found over the years is anytime there's a mass consensus against something that I say, usually you guys are right. So that's why I always emphasize go with your gut at the end of the day, because your gut will lead you to the truth a lot of times, and my gut I ignored this week with Quinshon Judkins, and I'm sorry for the people I told to play over a lot of guys that did really well. Like, I remember vividly telling someone I'd play Judkins before I played Rico Dowdle. That one stings, man. I'm going to shift gears to a more season-long thing. This is something that I was discussing all offseason long, and I didn't understand why people didn't see it my way on this one. During the offseason, I think there's a lot of, since it's like dead, right? Like the offseason, especially during the summer, the offseason's dead. And there's a lot of time, I don't like any other sports, really. I'm a golf guy. Like, I watch golf in the offseason. I'm not a basketball guy. I like hockey, but I don't, like, tune in constantly. And I definitely don't play it down here in Texas, I'll tell you that. Golf is my thing in the offseason, but like the point being, like, I have so much time, and football is my one and only. Like, football is all I care about. I'm a junkie when it comes to watching football games, like reruns and stuff like that. My wife always is like, didn't we watch this game like 2 days ago? And I'm like, yeah, I've got it back on. Didn't we watch this game last year? Yeah, I've got it back on. Like, my wife will tell you, like, I watch games all the time because I'm in love with this game. So during the offseason, I have so much time and I evaluate deeper things. And, when the season starts, it gets really hard to keep track of every single thing. And so, like, for example, when I ranked Justin Jefferson outside of my top 3 receivers all offseason, I didn't hear anything about it until we got closer to the season, and then people started really getting mad at me for doing that. Well, it turns out I was right about that one because I've studied this stuff so much. Like, I'm not going to be wrong on that. Well, another one of those I got really right, not Justin Jefferson, but Josh Jacobs. Like, Josh Jacobs, I don't understand why so many people wanted to fight me on him being a top 5 back this year. Like, I had consistently ranked him, I think, as my, like, running back 6. And it was so well above consensus. Like, if you went to any other Disney Channel, like, fantasy football YouTuber and saw where their rankings were, they all copy and paste each other. Like, one thing you definitely know from me, especially from ranking Jamar Chase last week, listen, I'm going to get some wrong, but I'm not afraid to be on an island by myself. I got no problem with being on an island. So a lot of times, like, if you're on an island, you're right. You look like a genius. And if you're wrong, you look like a moron. So I look like a moron with Jamar Chase this week. But all offseason, I had Josh Jacobs well above consensus. And I said, how do people not see this? Like, Josh Jacobs is on a top 5, top 10 offense at the lowest level top 10. And he's a workhorse. Like, how does he not do well? This guy is on a bye week this past week in week 5. He was on a bye week, comes out in week 6, dominates again, and now he's a top 5 back in fantasy football after missing a game. He's averaging like 20 points a game. I don't understand why this one was so complicated for people. Like, listen, when it comes to Jamar Chase, right? Like, and obviously I'm building up to Jamar Chase because I'm going to talk about him. But like this past week with Jamar Chase, it's like, well, you could argue with me, how did you not see that? And I understand, like, totally understand. It's an elite player. But I think when it comes down to it, on other rankings, like Justin Jefferson, right? Justin Jefferson's a great example. Justin Jefferson is someone, it's not that I didn't like him, but I didn't like his price, and I thought he was being overvalued, and nobody was taking into account the quarterback situation there in Minnesota. I mean, they were trying to get Aaron Rodgers for a long time. They were trying to get Sam Darnold back. If that doesn't tell you that they're not confident in J.J. McCarthy right out of the gate in the offseason, I'm not sure you're paying attention or you are just ignoring it. You're not using your brain. So when it comes to Justin Jefferson, it's like that stuff can go under the radar so well, but like Josh Jacobs being a top 5 running back was such a layup. And it was so bizarre watching people be like, this guy's a moron. Like, who's ranking Josh Jacobs in the top 6 of their rankings? And it's like, well, I am, number one. And number two, the reason you're probably not seeing that is because all these guys circle jerk each other and just copy and paste rankings. Like, that's what you see from the rest of the community. I don't care about that. I will rank you as I see fit. And Josh Jacobs, it was always on the freaking table right in front of your eyes. Use them. Use your eyes. Josh Jacobs is a top 5 back in fantasy football. Was one of the easiest calls that nobody else made besides me this year. It was freaking weird. I don't understand like why people couldn't see it, but that was the layup. I've actually got 2 bonus things for what I got right and wrong because obviously I can't get out of here without talking about Jamar Chase. Like, I will get yelled at and screamed at. And listen, I got into a lot of battles this past week being over Jamar Chase in particular. And listen, I don't care about like the pushback, right? Like, I don't care about being looking stupid. I don't care. Like, looking stupid is something that I've always been willing to do in my life. Like, I think that if you aren't willing to look stupid, then you won't be looking like a genius when you get something right. You know, I got Chuba Hubbard really right last year as being a top 15 back when the majority of the community was like, oh, it's Jonathan Brooks. Well, like, I stood on an island. It was screaming Chuba Hubbard from the top of the rooftop, and I got it right. And I looked like a genius, and people were like, wow, how'd you see that coming? So I have no problem standing on an island when it comes to Jamar Chase. And I'll be honest with you, like, the logic behind it, I'm actually not, like, I really don't see a huge problem with it. Now, of course, I'm here to tell you I got it wrong. Like, Jamar Chase being a top 20 guy, what bothers me is not the pushback I get from people on it. Like, the people who are so rabid, and I mean rabid last week. Like, rabid was I've never seen people so rabid towards me than last week when I ranked Jamar Chase. And I think it was like the wide receiver 20 is where I ranked him last week in my rankings video. I've never seen people more rabid than that moment. And it's not that bothers me. What bothers me is the loyal faithfuls who come on to my channel and are really looking for genuine advice and take my word when I say I'll play somebody like, I'm trying to think of a good example this week of someone who didn't do well. I'm sure someone watching knows like what I chose to do. I'm sure people watching know exactly a good example. I'm trying to think of a good example of this past week of wide receivers I would have played over him. Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, great example, right? Devontae Adams has 7.9 fantasy points in a full PPR format this previous week. Xavier Worthy, another guy that I said to play over Jamar Chase as well. Well, Jamar Chase was a top 5 wide receiver this week with 25.1 fantasy points in a full PPR format because he's the man. I mean, I want to make this clear. Like, there was never a question about what I believed about Jamar Chase as a player. Same thing with Justin Jefferson. When I ranked him outside my top 3 receivers this offseason, all offseason, it was never a question of like, well, is Justin Jefferson losing a step? No. Like, I never, ever thought that because you would never, ever think that if you watch the guy play. The question with Jamar Chase is, does Joe Flacco improve his upside? And I said no. Like, it's the same thing because they don't have an offensive line to protect him. And I stand by that. Like, I do think that the Packers defense is overall just overrated. That was a big takeaway I had watching the Packers and the Bengals. I watched that one today because I watch all of these games. But the big takeaway I had with that one was that the Packers defense is not as good as I thought. And I've been defending them for weeks. Kind of done doing that right now. But when it came to Jamar Chase, again, it's not the pushback that I get from the rabid people that bothers me, knowing that they're right now. What bothers me most is that I know people took my word for it and played other guys over him that they shouldn't have. And you could definitely expect Jamar Chase to move up my wide receiver rankings this week. Now, I'm not going to tell you that he's going to be top 5 again. Like, maybe he is, maybe he won't be. I haven't nailed it down yet. I'm not going to capitulate based off of one performance. And I get it. Like, the argument will be it's not one performance. Like, Jamar Chase is a top 5 wide receiver on the entire year right now. Like, Jamar Chase has been fantastic. So, because he is a fantastic player. So, obviously, Jamar Chase was a big doozy for me, and I apologize for people who played other guys over Jamar because that was a bad call by me. And, again, you can expect him to be up in the rankings this week. I'm not sure how high he'll be yet. I don't know exactly where he's going to land in these rankings. Maybe it's top 5, maybe it's top 10, but he will be higher than 20 this week for sure. And then a bonus one because I just went through a season-long thing that I got right. I want to briefly touch on this, which is that, again, like, there's a lot of things, like, I have so much time during the offseason because I don't care about basketball. I don't care about baseball as much. I mean, I care now because I've got a business that works on all sports. Like, by the way, really quick plug. You know we have hockey on the site, right? Our waiver wire tool supports fantasy hockey. It supports fantasy basketball when that starts up again, and it also supports fantasy baseball as well. So, like, our site is not just football. Obviously, that's my thing, but our site does more. If you play other sports, if you play other fantasy sports, we support that on our site as well. So, I have a natural interest towards football the most, but obviously now I have more interest in all sports because I have a business that, centers around those. But the point being is that, like, when it's the offseason, I don't just switch my attention to watching like, oh, LeBron James score his 37,000th point. I don't care about that stuff. I continue to watch football and I continue to make analysis and prepare for the following season in fantasy football. So I get a lot of things in the offseason right because I see things, but I do get stuff wrong, obviously. That's what this whole segment's for. And one of the things that I got wrong this offseason, I said Drake Maye was a bad pick. Drake Maye, listen, what my problem was with Drake Maye this offseason was that, if you look at the history of Mike Vrabel as a head coach, he doesn't let his quarterback throw the ball very much. Now, you can clearly look at it and say the reason why is because Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback for all those years. And he's just not as talented as Drake Maye. Well, my rebuttal to that was I think it's just a philosophy thing. Mike Vrabel is one of those old school coaches that doesn't like to put the ball in harm's way and he doesn't like turnovers. The irony of that is that they're turning the ball over tons this year, but that's beside the point. The point being is that I got that one very wrong because, it wasn't like Drake Maye was being overpriced. Drake Maye was not the quarterback 5 off the board. Drake Maye was not the quarterback 9 off the board. Drake Maye was the 15th, 16th quarterback off the board in a lot of drafts, especially early in the offseason. Drake Maye was not that highly ranked. So that one really bothers me because, it's not like the ranking. It's not like – I think the problem that I have with it is, when you look at a lot of guys, like Tyreek Hill, for example, right? It's easy to pick on him because he's out now and he can't defend himself. But that was one that I didn't like because it was a second-round pick. That's a high-round draft pick that if you screw up, your team's going to be in shambles. And, again, whether or not he got injured, it doesn't really – my opinion doesn't matter because maybe he would have blown past my prediction for him this year or maybe he wouldn't have. So I'm not trying to pick on him for not being as good of a player. I'm using him right now as an example for when you're that high of a draft pick, I'm going to have opinions on you. So I overextended my reach on this one because with Drake Maye, it's not like he was a high round draft pick. It's a worthy shot at the end of your draft. And I got news for people. If you are listening to this video right now and you have Drake Maye as your quarterback, well, you maximize your draft picks very well because Drake Maye was a late round pick in most fantasy drafts, and he's crushing it. He's a top 5 quarterback right now in fantasy. And it's someone I just said is a good trade target to get today. And I mean it very, very wholeheartedly. But I can tell you this, I did not see this coming. I didn't. Not that I knew. I did know this. I did know that he was going to look much better this year than he did last year because he has a better coach. Mike Vrabel is a really good coach I'm very complimentary of on this channel. Josh McDaniels, you could say what you want about him, but he does do well as an offensive coordinator. I think, some guys aren't head coaches, right? Some guys they're offensive coordinators or defensive coordinators. Vic Fangio is a perfect example over in Philadelphia. Guy's a great, brilliant, legendary Hall of Fame defensive coordinator. Head coach, he was terrible. Wade Phillips back in the day, he was terrible at head coach. I mean, there's countless lists of coordinators who were elite, but not good head coaches. Well, Josh McDaniels is one of those guys as an offensive coordinator that's really good. And so I knew from a coaching perspective he was getting a massive upgrade, but I still didn't like the fantasy outlook for it, and I was wrong about that one as well. So that was what I got right and what I got wrong. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you appreciate this video right here. And let's go ahead and answer our lone super chat. Alias, appreciate your patience, appreciate your super chat as well. Got sent an offer. Need your opinion. I'd received Chase Brown and Ricky Pearsall. They would get Debo. So obviously someone's trying to capitalize on a bad game from Debo. I would not take this personally. Listen, I like Ricky Pearsall. I really do. But, I saw something yesterday, I think it was, or it was either yesterday night, it was either last night or this morning, that Ricky Pearsall might play in Week 7, which I don't like hearing that for multiple reasons. Number one is because, this guy has already missed 2 games. And this past game that he just missed, he was coming off a mini bye week, essentially. So the fact that he couldn't play off 10 days of rest really bothers me. And number two is that anytime you hear like might play, he's got a chance to play, that usually doesn't mean that they're like looking really good to play. So obviously it's not that I think Ricky Pearsall is done for the year, but when you're trading for an injured player, you want some clarity. And you don't have clarity right now on him. Like, same thing with guys like Amarian Hampton, right? Like, Amarian Hampton, I would argue, actually has more clarity because he went on the IR. But, Amarian Hampton got put on the IR within, 24 hours of getting injured. And there's no conversation about, when he's going to return. I mean, you don't have clarity on Bucky Irving, even. He's been ruled out already for this upcoming week. So, when it comes to trading for an injured player, you want to get clarity. And the bottom line is right now, as of the time being, you're going to be Debo's probably a starter for you. You're going to be using Chase Brown. So it's just not one of those situations where you're getting really good value in return because you're trading away a player that has basically averaged 15, 16 fantasy points per game this year in a full PPR format. And in return, you're going to trade him and get a guy who's, yes, leading the backfield, but you're getting a guy who's averaging 9 fantasy points per game. And then you're getting the idea of Ricky Pearsall, who could average 15 fantasy points per game, but hasn't been doing that. And now we don't know when he's coming back. You see what I'm saying right here, right? Which is that you want to make sure if you're trading for an injured player, you have more clarity on it. And you don't also want to sell a player like Debo high because Debo is a guy that easily could come back and do really well next week. Debo is a hot and cold player. That's what he is. Debo's always been like that. But his hot games, which we've gotten plenty this year, can win you a week. So, no, I'm not going to do that move. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we'll go ahead and shut it down there. Tomorrow, just so you guys are aware, I did a poll. You guys spoke. I'm going to answer back. And kicker rankings are now on Tuesdays. Kicker rankings and defense rankings are coming out tomorrow, so you guys can look forward to that before the waiver wires run. Use our waiver wire tool. That is what I'm asking for in return for moving the schedule around just for you guys because I love you guys, and I know that you're going to get value from using our waiver tool. So if you haven't already signed up for premium membership at FS Roundup, go do it tonight. Go do it right now. Sign up for a premium membership. Get the waiver wire tool. You can get a team breakdown from me, and all these numbers we went through, they're completely free. So, love you guys. Go check out FS Roundup, and I'll see you guys on tomorrow's videos. Peace out.